Hi everyone, welcome to my seminar on ending the trend of childhood obesity. Here we'll discuss solutions and prevention strategies that you can try at home. We'll dive right in just a moment, but first I just want to start by saying that I think it's really important for kids to have a solid foundation of nutrition knowledge so that they can develop healthy behaviors for life, and it's my hope that in educating you, their parents and caregivers, that kids will automatically be in a positive environment where they can thrive. So really my goal here is to teach you some things that you might not have known before, get you engaged and involved with this information so that hopefully you'll still be thinking about it long after the seminar is over. And then you can go home and teach your kids in your own way. And who knows, maybe you'll even make some good changes in your own life that will improve your own health. So first I'd like to take a few minutes to actually be honest with you about my experience that has led me to be so passionate about this topic. My name is Hannah Harvey. I grew up in Massachusetts and I still live here and want to help people here. And while I'm now clearly an advocate for healthy behaviors and good habits, I want to come clean and tell you that I haven't always been the best about eating well and exercising regularly, and it's still something I have to work hard at each and every day. But it gets easier the more I do it. I actually joke that one of my main food groups growing up was candy, and I definitely had the cavities to prove it. But despite all the candy, I was actually a skinny little kid growing up because I was still really active and I did eat real food too, but looking back, I know that I didn't have the best eating habits overall, and this ended up haunting me later. For instance, I didn't eat breakfast regularly, and while I did like fruits and vegetables, the majority of my diet really consisted of white breads and pastas, cereals and potatoes, things like that, simply because I really liked them. And, things like pizza, grilled cheese sandwiches, chips and crackers, quesadillas, toast with butter, that kind of thing. And later as a teen, my diet stayed pretty much the same, but I definitely had less time to be as physically active with the increasing demands of high school. I'd turn to comfort foods when I felt stressed or bored, and I didn't think about how much I'd eaten or whether I'd gotten a good variety of foods. My diet got a little worse as I became more independent, making my own choices about where, when, and what to eat, so I'd spend my own money on a lot of the same junk I was used to eating, but all the while my hormones and metabolism began to shift as I went through puberty, so that eventually I found myself struggling with overweight to the point where my doctor told me that I was actually on the edge of becoming obese. And this was a real shock to me. I thought to myself, how did that sneak up on me? But the worst part is that I wasn't offered any help from my doctor, no tools or resources for making life changes, and I didn't feel like I was in a safe space, free of judgment, where I could ask questions and get the help I needed. It was just unfortunate that my doctor didn't have a good bedside manner, so that's why I encourage you to find medical and nutrition professionals for your kids who do have a good bedside manner. It's so important for your kids to feel that they are safe and in a judgment-free space. And likewise, my parents didn't really understand what I was going through and how emotionally difficult it was for me. Everyone in my immediate and extended family has always been extremely fit, so being one of the only kids to have weight problems was something no one quite knew how to handle. They tried to help in their own ways, of course, but it was hard for them to help me, and I couldn't even tell them how to help me because I didn't know how to help myself. It was all so daunting. And at that point, I didn't even really know much about how many calories were in certain foods or what that even meant, because I also didn't really know how many calories I needed each day. I can still remember reading a nutrition label for the first time as a teenager thinking, is 100 calories a lot? I just didn't have a solid foundation of nutrition knowledge at all. And remember, this is back before we had smartphones and other devices that could help us count our steps and track our calories. And as a kid, it was really hard to figure out how to kick my bad habits or how to be self-disciplined when it came to food. From what I'd read in magazines and seen on TV as a teenager, I kept thinking that restriction was the only way to lose weight. But restriction would cause me to panic, and I'd end up secretly binging on foods I knew I shouldn't have. And as you might guess, my weight problem didn't go away. So it was a vicious cycle, and I couldn't see the way out. I felt trapped, like I was in quicksand, slowly sinking into this body I didn't even recognize anymore. But at one point, I just knew I had to do something, and the motivation to change kickstarted something inside me. But I'm not exaggerating when I say it took years of really getting to know myself, being honest with myself, making mistakes, and learning what works for me as an individual to finally make the right changes. And what really helped me most in the end was learning about how the body actually works, how the brain works, and how food affects it all. This has really helped me to make sense of what I need versus what I might want. And the more I've learned through my education in biology, psychology, and nutrition, the more I've come to see just how valuable this knowledge is. And honestly, I believe this is something we all should have the right to know. When you really think about it, we really are what we eat. The chemicals that make up our food are consumed, broken down, and used so we can breathe and think and talk and work and play and laugh and grow. So shouldn't we all know how to best fuel our bodies so we can feel our best? And shouldn't our kids have every opportunity to live well for as long as possible so that they can do great things with their lives? I really do think so. So that's why I'm here sharing this with you, so you can go home, take this information with you, and give your kids a better chance than I had at setting a solid foundation of good habits to make life easier, more enjoyable, and healthier. So without further ado, here's what we're going to cover. We'll start off with the cold hard facts about childhood obesity, like what are the risks and what are the causes. Knowing what things might cause a problem can lead us to solutions and help us to think of ways to prevent problems before they even start. I actually always thought it was a good saying that the best way to quit smoking is never to start in the first place. The same is true for childhood obesity. If you know what might lead to childhood obesity, maybe you can avoid whatever causes it. And likewise, if your kids are already struggling with overweight or obesity, you might learn some things today that can help you think about how you and your family can make changes at home. We'll go over reading nutrition labels and seeing past certain health claims that companies will put on their packaging, and I'll share some things I've learned that have proven to work for kids in preventing obesity. I'll even share some yummy meal ideas and tips for how to make the most of your groceries each week, and at the end, I'd love to answer your questions and hear from you about your experiences and what you've tried, what has worked for your kids and what hasn't. And I really want you to all take advantage of being here together. I encourage you to start a conversation with each other, because sitting next to you are people who might understand some of what you and your kids might be going through and can support you. This is a safe, judgment-free space. So we'll get a chance to introduce ourselves a bit later, but first let's get down to the reason we're all here: childhood obesity. Something that I find really shocking is that 1 in 6 kids in the US is obese. 1 in 6. That means that 1 in 6 kids is more likely to develop serious health problems early in life, like cancer, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, hormone imbalances, all of which can lead to expensive medical bills and lifelong prescriptions. But it also means that 1 in 6 kids is more likely to develop depression. And sadly, it means that 1 in 6 kids is more likely to die early. This just shouldn't be the case. So, what can we do to stop it? Well, you might be surprised that you actually have more power to fight this problem than you might think. The more that you know, the less likely your kids will suffer from obesity. But first, it's important to recognize if your child is obese or at risk of becoming obese. You might say, well, of course I'd know, but one study of parents and their kids actually showed that 42% of parents didn't know that their kids were obese. So then you might ask, well, then how do I know? Well, this is where your child's doctor can help. Weight and food can be really sensitive issues, so be sure to find a doctor or a nutrition professional that you trust who has a good bedside manner that your child doesn't feel uncomfortable or judged around. And get your kids into the doctor every year so the doctor can track your child's growth to make sure everything's on track the way it should be, or alert you to potential problems or risks. what you can expect the doctor to do is calculate your child's body mass index, or BMI. And this is a measurement calculated using your child's height and weight to get a general sense of how your child's size compares to other kids of the same age. You can even do this at home using an online BMI calculator, but I do want to point out that while BMI can give a general idea of whether a person is larger than most people of the same age, it isn't the be-all end-all in determining health. And this is why regular doctor visits are essential, because your child's doctor will consider the whole picture. And genetics are definitely part of this bigger picture. It's true that some of us are genetically prone to overweight and obesity. This is because the building blocks of our bodies, our DNA that we inherit from our parents and the generations before them, largely determines how our bodies metabolize or use our food. Likely we can all look at our parents and grandparents and see similarities between how their bodies work and how ours work, but at the end of the day, we're all still completely individual, and genetics aren't the only thing that makes us who we are. We're also molded and affected by our environments. So a person who spends most of their time hiking mountains, for example, is likely going to have a different body composition than a person who spends most of their time on the couch playing video games. And it makes sense, but there's more to it than that. You know, these days we're completely flooded with advertising to get us to spend our money on sweets, processed foods, and fast foods. They're all marketed to look really, really appetizing. So if you're seeing and hearing the ads, then you can bet that your kids are seeing and hearing the ads too. And odds are your kids are actually getting hit with ads even harder than you are, because companies want to keep kids coming back to buy their products for life so that they can make a profit. And we really do get used to going back to these foods. Little kids don't realize that they have habits. They just go with what they know. They don't even necessarily know what habits are. And if you've ever tried to change a habit, you'll know that habits can be really tough things to change. It's definitely not impossible, but it's hard. It takes motivation and self-discipline. And this is why we as adults have to help our kids develop good habits from the start. This means we need to make sure we're not getting kids used to frequent trips to fast food restaurants, to eating processed and packaged junk foods, and to drinking sodas and juices packed with sugar. These are the most common foods that contribute to childhood obesity. And it doesn't mean that we have to cut these things out completely, but it means that these things cannot make up the majority of our meals. If they do, it'll add up to unhealthy weight gain and all the health problems that can arise from there. And it's important to remember too that our habits aren't just what we eat, but how we eat. For example, have you ever found yourself on the couch starting to watch a TV show or movie with a full bowl of ice cream, only to look down a few minutes later and wonder, whoa, where did all that go? Well, sometimes this can make us feel like we actually missed out on the eating experience and can make us want to get second or third helpings. Our perceptions of how much we've eaten can get totally thrown off when we eat in front of our TVs, phones, tablets, and computers. And this is something that started even back in American culture in the 1950s, back to the time of the first TV dinners. I mean, I can still remember many nights growing up watching movies and TV while eating dinner with my family, and my husband's family used to watch TV every night at the dinner table too. It's something that my husband and I had to really talk about and change so that we could create healthier habits for our own family. And I'll admit, it was kind of a tough habit to kick at first, because for us, watching TV with dinner was sort of deeply ingrained, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. But it's also pretty deeply disturbing, because it's part of the reason why nearly half of Americans are obese. And all this time that we're spending in front of our screens is time missed tasting our food and feeling fullness and sharing the experience of a meal together. And talk about the American experience. Here, we're much too used to cheap, easy to grab packaged foods high in salt, sugar, and unhealthy fats like trans fats and hydrogenated oils. These kinds of things cause health problems like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, unhealthy weight gain, high cholesterol, and the list goes on. And to make matters worse, a lot of these foods are advertised directly to kids and are slapped with health claims to make unsuspecting parents think they're giving their kids healthy foods. Just take Lucky Charms cereal, for example, and this isn't even the worst of it. They're now touting the fact that their cereals are gluten-free because people right now assume that gluten-free means healthy, even without really knowing the true background behind a gluten-free diet. Now, of course, this gluten-free advertisement is great for parents with kids who have celiac disease, but in reality, celiac disease really only affects about 1% of Americans. Now, if you're worried about whether your child has celiac disease, luckily it's just a quick blood test to find out. But otherwise, that health claim is just on the packaging to make you think that this quote-unquote food is somehow good for you. They even try to boast that whole grain is the first ingredient, as if that should lay all your worries to rest about whether this food is healthy or not. But let's actually take a closer look. Yes, the first ingredient is whole grain oats, but the second ingredient is sugar, and so are the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh ingredients. If you look over to the right at the nutrition info, sugar is the most abundant component of this cereal at 10 grams per serving, with a single serving being 3/4 of a cup. Now compare this to a half cup of plain old-fashioned oatmeal, which just has 1 gram of sugar per serving, but twice the amount of fiber, 3 times the amount of potassium, no added salt, and 2.5 times the amount of protein, for just about the same number of calories. Add in a little honey, vanilla, and cinnamon, maybe some raisins, nuts, or fresh fruit, and that oatmeal breakfast will keep your kids feeling energized and satisfied way, way longer than they would on just a little bowl of sugary breakfast cereal. What's certain is that kids generally aren't getting enough fruits and veggies, lean meats and fish, whole grains, and healthy fats. This also means that kids aren't getting enough fiber, and fiber is an important part of the diet that not only keeps our digestive systems from getting backed up, but also makes us feel fuller and more satisfied after a meal, causing us to eat smaller portions, snack less, have fewer cravings, and have fewer blood sugar spikes. Fiber, which is found in fruits, veggies, whole grains, nuts, and seeds, is a key aspect of preventing obesity, and this will come up again in a little bit. So with all of this in mind, maybe you're starting to think of ways that you can make changes at home to make your kids' environments a bit healthier, and ways that you can set them up for success. I'm guessing some of you might have young kids, so now's a great time for you to start making changes at home so they can get accustomed to these new healthy habits and ways of thinking about making food choices and being active. It's a time for explaining why certain things are good for them and letting them get involved in grocery shopping, food prep, and cooking. And it's a time for letting them learn new and important life skills and making them feel capable and involved. But it's also important to remember that food can become something very personal and tied to emotions as your kids grow up. And it can be a sensitive topic. I definitely know that from my own experience. So it's important that you avoid making food a punishment or reward, like giving them ultimatums about finishing their vegetables before they can have dessert, or telling them they can't have a cookie if they don't do their homework. There are other ways to get your kids to actually enjoy and want to finish their vegetables, and there are other ways to encourage them to do their homework that don't involve food as the motivator. Plus, your kids will eat what is made available to them. If you make junk foods more accessible than healthy foods, your kids are probably going to go for the junk. But if you make healthy foods the norm, then that's what they'll eat. So part of making these kinds of changes might mean taking a step back and asking yourself, do we really need this junk in the house? What better foods can I be feeding my kids instead? And granted, maybe you like to indulge in junk food sometimes too. I can understand that. Well, that doesn't mean that you can't buy junk foods at all, but you can put them in a high cabinet out of sight so that the bowl of apples or grapes on the counter or the yogurt in the fridge becomes the more convenient option. And remember too, little kids really just want to do things with the people they love, with you, whatever it is. Maybe that means packing a picnic and going to the beach, hiking through national parks, going bowling, or sitting down for a family meal. Whatever you're doing, they're going to want to do it with you. And lastly, research actually shows that sitting down for 5 or more family meals a week actually can prevent unhealthy weight gain, especially for younger kids. So if it's not something you're already doing, see if you can increase the number of times each week that you sit down as a family for meals and see how it changes things. And maybe some of you have kids who are already in their teens. This all still applies to you. As far as making healthy changes goes, it's definitely better late than never. While it can be a bit more challenging to promote behavior change in teens because they're constantly becoming more and more independent and capable of making decisions on their own, it's not impossible. And while it might not always feel like it, you still have a huge impact on their thoughts, feelings, and actions. They're still looking to you for answers and guidance, support, and structure. You still have a lot that you can teach them. And a lot of times, teens just really need you to listen. They're going through a lot of stuff right now. And getting together for family meals can be a perfect time for that. There's also a lot of strong evidence that suggests that eating family meals while sharing family support can reduce the risk of eating disorders, which again is a sensitive topic and something that teens often struggle with. So what you should know is that you absolutely can make a difference, and now is not too late. Just think back to some of the causes of childhood obesity we just talked about. You can set rules about limiting screen time, and you can get your kids motivated and excited about getting outside by getting active together. How you get your family going with healthier behaviors might not mean the same thing for the person who's sitting next to you. One family might like to play sports, another might like to garden, or maybe you're the kind of family who does a little of everything. The point is, your kids are going to tag along with you, so you can set a good example by cooking at home, teaching them how to shop for groceries and read nutrition labels, learning together, playing together, and eating together. I'll never forget, even as a little kid, riding in the shopping cart at the grocery store, helping my mom bake and cook in the kitchen, going for bike rides with my dad, and cheering my brothers on at their sports games. And then I grew up to do a lot of those same things. To this day, I still think about my family when it comes to making healthy choices for myself, and it's one of my main motivators. So just remember that you are making a real impact on your kids right now. And while we may not be able to move mountains every day, we can still make good choices in our daily lives that will get us where we want to be. So for the days when you're feeling too overwhelmed with all you have going on in your busy life, you want to be able to fall back on good habits, not bad ones. You can make good habits the easy ones, your defaults, your go-tos. For example, if you're feeling snacky, you don't have to keep bags and boxes of chips, cookies, crackers in the house that are just too easy and tempting to grab, especially in a moment of hunger or energy crash. Instead, you can make that go-to snack an apple with peanut butter, veggies and hummus, or yogurt and fruit. It's just about changing your mindset and what you're used to, and then what your kids are used to. It's about understanding that what you're putting into your body and into your kids' bodies truly makes a difference in how you all feel. So you can make the healthier choice the new normal for them and for you. And one of my favorite tips is to eat the rainbow. I actually use this tip every day. It's a great way to visualize good quality foods and get a variety in your diet. And keep in mind, this doesn't include any foods with food coloring, so we're not talking about Skittles or M&Ms here. We're talking about real fruits and vegetables. So the next time you're at the grocery store, really just take a moment to look around the produce section and marvel at the colors. It's really pretty spectacular once you see the bright hues for what they are, instead of keeping your head buried in your shopping list and whatever you've got to do next. You can easily get your kids excited about the colors too. You can try a game every time you go to the store where it's their goal to pick out one fruit and vegetable of each color of the rainbow. Research actually shows that kids who have a hand in grocery shopping at supermarkets instead of convenience stores tend to eat more veggies and fiber. And as we've discussed before, diets higher in fruits, veggies, and fiber can help prevent obesity. And believe it or not, fruits and veggies of different colors actually provide different healing powers for the body. So red fruits and veggies can help fight off things like cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and can help keep your skin healthy. Orange and yellow fruits and veggies are great for the immune system, keeping eyes sharp and healthy, and for allowing cells to grow properly. Green fruits and veggies are excellent sources of vitamins and minerals, important for healthy bones and blood, a strong immune system, to fight viruses and disease, removing toxins from the body, and improving mood and energy. And blue and purple foods aid in preventing cancer, inflammation, cell damage, and aging. White and brown foods reduce the risk of certain types of cancer, heart disease, and can help improve bone strength. So you can really see how just keeping the colors in mind, you'll really be setting your family up to be fed a variety of interesting, flavorful foods with tons of health benefits. I'll provide you with a handout with examples of different foods of each color group, so you can take that to the store with you next time you go. And pretty soon you'll find that you'll get used to shopping like this. It'll become second nature, a good habit that you can fall back on. And you can combine your beautiful rainbow of fruits and vegetables with whole grains, lean meats, healthy fats, and dairy for a fully packed, really satisfying meal. My go-to grains are usually whole wheat bread or pitas, whole wheat pasta, rolled oats, and brown rice, and I generally stick with olive oil, vegetable oil, sesame oil, and sunflower oil, and I avoid things like butter, margarine, coconut oil, and palm oil, which are just higher in saturated fats that are harder for the body to break down. So I only use those on occasion. And then for snacks, I really like having a small handful of raw, unsalted, unflavored pecans, almonds, or walnuts between meals, because any of the ones that are generally roasted or have additional flavoring on them usually are higher in calories. And I also like to add beans, lentils, and fish to bulk up my veggie dishes. And I just want to share with you an example of how I might cook throughout the week using a lot of the same ingredients and leftovers to make my life easier, because like you, I'm pretty busy. You can follow recipes if you like, but to be honest, I usually just throw together whatever I have on hand because I kind of shop in a way where everything can sort of work together, like veggies and rice or beans and pasta, and I just change up the spices a little bit. Spices can actually make a huge difference, and when dishes are packed with flavor from spices, you really don't need to use as much salt, so that's good too. So one day I might make an Asian-inspired steamed veggie bowl with rice, salmon, and low-sodium soy sauce, and if there's leftovers, I might use the steamed veggies and rice in whole wheat tortillas with beans, avocado, yogurt, and salsa for a more Mexican-style dish. From there, I can use any leftover veggies and rice to make a curry, and later in the week, I might use other leftover ingredients for a veggie pasta dish or a hearty bean chili. You can keep things exciting, even using the same basic ingredients. It doesn't have to be complicated to taste good and be good for you and your kids. You can also add a variety to breakfast by switching throughout the week between eggs, oatmeal, cereal, yogurt, and my personal favorite, homemade French toast with whole wheat bread. And fresh fruit is always a great part of breakfast too, and can provide excellent health benefits like removing toxins from the body and providing fiber for healthy digestion. Research has actually shown that eating breakfast and eating foods higher in fiber are great for preventing obesity. Apples are an awesome food to add to your kids' breakfast because they really provide a lot of fiber, so they're filling and they're sweet, but they won't spike your kids' blood sugars like sugary cereals might. So that saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, is not wrong. And for other healthy snacks, you can make a rotation of your healthy favorites like hummus, vegetables, and whole wheat pitas. And then plain yogurt can be used with fruit and nuts, or can be turned into savory vegetable dips. Yogurt is a good thing to have on hand. It's especially great for digestive health because of the benefits of probiotics, and it's shown that healthy gut bacteria can prevent obesity as well. And I just want to point out that healthy doesn't have to mean boring. You can make sure that you can still let your kids have dessert, but you can put your own healthy twist on it. So turn your favorite fruits and yogurts into nice creams by just blending or mashing them and freezing them, or make fun little fruit and yogurt parfaits. Try new dessert recipes to make together that don't call for a lot of added sugar, salt, and saturated fat, or simply just mix up some fruits in a bowl. Again, it doesn't have to be boring, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I just encourage you to give it a try, experiment, and find what works for you and for your kids. The support is right here for you. And now I just really want to applaud you for taking the time out of your busy life to be here, because you're really doing a great thing for your family by being here and learning something new to try and help your family to be and stay healthy. So please don't hesitate to ask questions and give feedback at this time, and then we will move on to some activities to get you up and moving again. So thanks so much.